you've ever shared a meme, a hashtag, or looked online to have your voice heard, you can thank Black Twitter. We have director and executive producer Prentice Penny here to chat about a new three-part series, Black Twitter, A People's History, now streaming on Hulu. Thank you so much for your time today.
Glad to be here.
Prentice, you're best known as the showrunner and executive producer of Insecure with Issa Rae, and I know that you've seen the power of social media, both good and bad.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about maybe the impact of the show, what it was like maybe after an episode aired, or what happened with a certain character or a certain storyline for you.
Yeah, I mean, you really start to see the way, Black Twitter not just impacts, obviously, in terms of, what networks think, but in terms of how you feel your influence is felt, right? And so, I remember when nobody knew what our show was, and I remember once, the culture found it, being like, I remember going on Twitter one night after, I think, season 1 or 2, and we were like the 7 of the top 10 things trending on Twitter. And you're like, oh my God, we're like breaking Twitter up here. You know what I mean? But you can feel when Black Twitter is in on something, they're in on something. So to me, it's been something that I've been a part of for just a long time. So this was just another way to show my love and respect for the culture in that way.
And I feel like Chicago plays such a big part because we have President Obama, who really used that vehicle, and also the crying Michael Jordan, which it was so meta when he referenced that as well too.
It's super meta, and obviously, so much of Black Twitter's obviously rise is happening in the Obama era. So it was nice to see that time again reflected in the first episode of the docuseries.
Talk a little bit about that shared experience, because obviously there's a generation that didn't have maybe their voice heard or didn't see themselves represented in certain media, and then there's going to be that younger generation that always grew up with this. So they're always going to know that there's a place and a space for them to have their voice heard.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very unique. And I think even the users who were on Black Twitter at that time is very unique, right? Because again, so much happened, but we're really talking about a 15 to 16 year span. Like, my children are 14 and 16. They're TikTok kids, right? But so much of what they do and how they move in the real world is all a testament to Black Twitter, right? Like my kids only grow up around the phrases like Black Girl Magic or Oscar So White or Black Lives Matter. So them saying that or hearing that is no big deal, but they didn't know where it came from until they saw the docuseries, right? And so you really are trying to chronicle so much dense information, even at a time when people are on social media, but really that specific time was just kind of so special and so unique, but you feel its reach pre and post.
Because obviously, we talk a little bit about the memes and hashtags and all these wonderful things, but it's also been used to raise awareness on social issues, on things that are happening in the community that maybe they're not getting the same kind of publicity and media attention as maybe other stories.
Yeah, so many times I think in the past, so much in terms of what was happening in our culture might be relegated to our TV shows or our newspapers. And Twitter was the first place, I think, where our news and the things that matter to us got mixed in with the mainstream, and you couldn't avoid it, right? And so when things in Ferguson were happening, sure, CNN and those places are covering it, but Black Twitter is also covering it, and also covering and giving you narratives that maybe the mainstream news outlets aren't giving you, that then the mainstream news outlets had to respect, right? And so you're seeing things like If They Gun Me Down start to trend in terms of what picture are they going to use, and that's all a testament to Black Twitter.
Let's talk a little bit about maybe some of the other cultures that have also embraced this version of the, we have gay Twitter and mom Twitter and Asian American Twitter and Mexican Twitter. But just to see like people seeing that there's a voice for them, and now seeing all these communities come together to be able to have their voice heard, maybe share in something that's important to them, or maybe share a laugh in something that is a joint experience.
Yeah, I think all of that is everything you said is so relevant, right? Because I think so many times in our country, we can get kind of caught in like, what is the mainstream, and that sort of whatever the dominant thing is, that's what we should do. But our country obviously is made up of so many different types of people that, to me, you have to have a space that honors and reflects all of that.
What was something funny, especially when you talk to people that were not part of Black Twitter or people that did not post on there? Because there's a funny part in the very first episode of people wanting to know, was there a special URL? What's the what is it? Where's this magical place? I mean, talk a little bit about the impact of Black Twitter, especially when people were so fascinated of like where it existed.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to follow the right people. I almost say it's almost like when you go to a speakeasy, you got to kind of know what the password is to get in, right? And you got to be willing to be uncomfortable. It was very different than Facebook, right? Facebook was kind of follow your friends, right? People from high school or your aunt or whatever. But, Twitter was follow strangers, right? And kind of mix it up a little bit. And that's kind of what Black Twitter was. You got to be willing to mix it up a little bit. So unless you're willing to mix it up a little bit, you're not going to find where Black Twitter is.
You also have like, as I get older, you think of these stories that like your grandparents told you or that your parents told you, or you might go look through an old DVD of like, oh, this was, my favorite movie at this time. And, maybe 20, 30 years from now, where the space of Twitter is going to exist and maybe be studied because so much history is in there right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the reason of the docuseries, right? Is like we're living in a time certainly where certain books are being banned or certain narratives are being changed about, historically about culture. And so to be able to have something that it says like, hey, this is actually the truth of this. Because again, I was making the doc initially for today, but again, as I kept making it and watching the platform be bought as we're making it, I was like, oh no, this is something that needs to be around for 5, 25, 50 years.
Oh, exactly. Well, Prentice, thank you so much for your time today. Black Twitter, A People's History, now streaming on Hulu.
Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you.